Hello everyone, my name is Kaitlyn, and I was the 2017 Diageo World Class Canadian and Global Champion. I am so excited to have you here in my home so I can teach you how to make 3 delicious cocktails start to finish with some tips and tricks along the way. Now you don't need any fancy tools for these cocktails, just whatever you have in the cupboards, and I'm going to make sure that you can make the best cocktails for any occasion. Now we'll be tapping into the Diageo portfolio using some Ketel 1 vodka, Tanqueray No. 10 gin, and Don Julio Blanco tequila. Now first up, I'm going to teach you how to make an espresso martini using Ketel 1 vodka. Now you don't need any fancy bar tools for this. If you do have a shaker tin, fantastic. If not, feel free to use a mason jar or even a protein shaker. So let's get started. Now our first ingredient is of course the star of the show, the Ketel 1 vodka. Made in Schiedam, which is just outside of Amsterdam, by the Nolet family, this vodka has been made for 300 years. We are on our 11th generation master distiller, which I think is pretty cool, a distillery being passed down from father to son to father to son. Now we'll be using 2 full ounces for our espresso martini. Now the Ketel 1 vodka has such nice, delicate flavor profile notes to it. Yes, it's made in copper stills, which really smooths out and balances this vodka. It's going to be the perfect backbone to our espresso martini. Now for our second ingredient, of course we're going to need some coffee for this espresso martini. Now if you have an espresso machine at home, feel free to use 1 full shot. Just make sure the shot has come down to room temperature or at least chilled. If you put a shot of hot coffee over ice, it's going to melt down way too quickly and the balance of the cocktail is going to be completely off. Now if you don't have an espresso machine, the next best thing is cold brew coffee, which I'll be using today. Now cold brew coffee has the same strength and flavor as your espresso shot, so it's going to be a great substitute. I'm going to be using 1.5 ounces right into my shaker. Now to balance out all those flavors and make this cocktail really come to life, we need to add a tiny bit of sugar. So we'll be using a 1-to-1 simple syrup. Now what does that mean? That means that we're going to take equal parts sugar to water. So if I'm using 1 cup of each, that's 1 cup of sugar and 1 cup of water. Put that into a pot, put it on your stove, and just bring it to a light simmer. Take it off the stove, let it cool down, and store it in your fridge. Now you have yourself some simple syrup for your cocktails. Now this cocktail only requires about 1/2 ounce, but if you do like your espresso martinis a little bit sweeter, just up that slightly. Alright, so now that we have our Ketel 1 vodka, our cold brew coffee, and our simple syrup, we're ready to add ice and shake this up for the perfect espresso martini. Shake this up for about 10 seconds and you're ready to serve. Now I'm going to fine strain this into my martini glass. If you don't have a fine strainer, that's totally fine. This is just going to take out any unwanted ice chips. And for a finishing touch, just a sprinkle of coffee beans right over the top. And there you have it, your 3-ingredient espresso martini made with Ketel 1 vodka. Cheers! Moving on to our second and probably most iconic cocktail, the gin martini. Now, what I love about martinis is that they're ultra personal. You can have them in a multitude of ways, whether you like them shaken or stirred, straight up or on the rocks, dirty or with a twist of lemon. The options are kind of endless, and it's really to your desired preference. Now, lucky for me, I like my gin martinis made with Tanqueray number 10. There's something about the nice base citrus notes in Tanqueray number 10 that really shine in a great stirred down martini. Now, with a name like Tanqueray number 10, you would think that the gin had 10 botanicals, but actually there's only 8. To the 4 base botanicals, juniper, coriander, angelica root, and licorice, there are 4 more added in the distillation process, and that is whole, fresh citrus fruit. We have lime, orange, grapefruit, and the addition of chamomile. Now, the way I like to make my martinis is I like to stir them down, and I actually like to keep my bottle of Tanqueray number 10 in the freezer so the spirit is nice and cold. I'm going to be using a full 2 ounces, which I'm going to pour right into my mixing glass. Now, I like my martini on the wet side, so I definitely like to use some dry vermouth. Now, for a basic martini, I would suggest using about 1/4 ounce of dry vermouth. For myself, I'm going to put a full 1/2 ounce of dry vermouth into my mixing glass. Now, all that's left to do is to add some ice and to stir it down. Now, when you're stirring down a martini, you want to make sure your dilution is absolutely perfect. So feel free to every once in a while just pull your spoon out and dab it on the back of your hand to check the temperature and to check the taste. Now, this still needs a little bit of time. A good tip and trick for stirring your martini: make sure that the back of the spoon is firmly against the outside of the glass and you're making full sweeping motions, keeping along the outside of the glass to make some smooth transitions while you stir your martini. Now, another great suggestion, if you can, is keep your martini glass in the freezer ahead of time so it's nice and chilled down, so when you're pouring your martini in, it doesn't fluctuate in temperature. And now for the finishing touch. I personally like to enjoy my Tanqueray 10 martini with a twist of grapefruit. Now, for me, this really brings out those fresh citrusy notes in Tanqueray number 10 just perfectly. But if you're a lover of olives or like a lemon twist, that's up to you. That's the great part about the gin martini. And there you have it, your Tanqueray number 10 gin martini. Moving on to our third and final cocktail, and my personal favorite, the Margarita, made with Don Julio Blanco tequila. Now, I was pretty lucky a few years ago to actually visit the Don Julio distillery, and it was amazing. The passion that the people have for tequila is second to none. Now, Don Julio Gonzalez himself said it best: when you have passion, you have everything. So we are gonna make this margarita with a lot of passion and some great Don Julio Blanco tequila. Now again, for this, all you're gonna need is a shaker tin, and if you don't have one, again, use that mason jar or that protein shaker. Now I'm gonna be adding 1.5 ounces of this Don Julio Blanco tequila. What I love about the Don Julio Blanco tequila is it's so fresh and green. It's got all these great notes of jalapeno or fresh cut grass. And I know that sounds a little weird, but trust me, it's gonna shine through in this margarita so well. And to really highlight and showcase this drink well, we're also gonna add a little bit of orange liqueur, about 1/2 ounce. Now this is just gonna add to the delicious flavor of that Don Julio tequila and really make our margarita pop. And to balance out our cocktail, we're gonna need a little bit of sugar. You can definitely use a 1-to-1 simple syrup, or if you'd like to go a little more traditional, you can use some agave nectar. I'm using a 1-to-1 simple syrup and only about 1/2 ounce. But if you like it a touch sweeter, go up a bit. If you like it a little less sweet, go down a bit. Now you can't have a margarita without some fresh lime juice. So I am going to add about 3/4 ounce to our margarita. Now a good trick to get the most out of your lime is actually use the palm of your hand and give it a good rub on your cutting board back and forth just to loosen up the juice inside. Using my hand press, I'm going to squeeze out 3/4 ounce. Now all we have to do is add some ice and shake this up for about 10 seconds. Now I'm a big fan of salt on the rim of my glass for my margarita, but that's not to everybody's taste. So a good rule of thumb is to actually only salt half of the glass, just in case somebody doesn't want it there. Now all you have to do is actually just take a piece of lime and rub it along the outside of half of your glass, just to get it a bit tacky, so the salt will stick really nicely to it. Get yourself some great flaky salt so it sticks really nicely to the outside of the glass, and just roll your glass gently into the salt. Now all we have to do is add ice to our glass and strain in our margarita. couple of lime pieces on top, and you have yourself the perfect Don Julio Blanco margarita. I hope this was helpful and happy drinking, and remember to always drink responsibly. Cheers!